Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it is Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. If you check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, you can see the different teams I played for, at least the helmets of the teams I played for in my background. Also always available on our social media clips at Ross Tucker Pod, Twitter and Instagram, or me at Ross Tucker NFL, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm at all of those places and really, really enjoy it. The star of this show, though, it's Emory Hunt. I'm such a huge fan of his for so many different reasons. The work ethic, the fact that he likes lower level football like I do, quote unquote, lower level football like I do. The fact that he loves football at all 3 levels, high school, college, and the pros. Because really, if you really love the sport, wouldn't you? Like the people that are only into the NFL or only into college, I'm always like, okay. But like, if you really love the sport, wouldn't you kind of love every aspect of it? Now, I don't go as crazy on the other leagues as Emory does, but gosh, I have 2 kids. He doesn't, so that's my excuse. At F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. He also has the draft guide, which, look, it won't be here for a couple months probably, but you got to sign up for it now. You got to make sure you're on the list. Footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide. This will kind of be a hodgepodge episode, Emory. A bunch of things to talk about, right? Like the playoff rankings, the Heisman, Army, Navy, Deion, his speech to the Colorado kids and to the Jackson State kids. There's a lot to get to. We can start, by the way, is it next week we'll be able to start breaking down some of these bowl games? I don't know when the first ones start. I had to pull them up. But I think next week we could start to break down some of those first bowl games that will be coming up. Maybe let's start with that. Maybe let's start with the playoff rankings, Emory, and just your thoughts on the final playoff rankings and the teams that made the playoffs and even maybe below that, if that interests you as well.
You know, Ross, obviously it was a long, debate all throughout you saw the debate start when TCU took the field. I think we called it that Kansas State was going to win that game. So everybody kind of knew TCU was treading on thin ice. So you started to see the campaign start somewhere around the second quarter. Well, TCU shouldn't, be punished for losing this game, or, TCU, a team like Alabama shouldn't be rewarded for watching the game. And like, why y'all game planning and campaigning for TCU? I'm like, yo, I want to see more Utah. I want to see Utah in there now. Or how about we make the case for USC? Clearly, it was a different game when Caleb Williams was hurt. Now, we don't know how healthy he would be for the playoff game, but man, you could also make the case you're making for TCU, you could make for USC. Bama to me was a long shot anyway, and nobody wants to see Tennessee in there with Joe Milton throwing rocket shots 5 yards away or 600 yards away. Nobody wants to see that. Although Joe Milton did look improved from the time we saw him last year. I digress, though. I think, if the only issue I had was TCU at 4, but I understand it.
No, TCU's at 3.
Oh, they're at 3. Okay, I understand TCU at 3.
Yeah, TCU's at 3. Michigan's 2. They play TCU, who's 3. Georgia and Ohio State playing each other at 1 and 4, which is interesting because I think TCU should be 3. Right. I thought they got it right. TCU should be ahead of Ohio State because TCU had an awesome year. They had to play that extra game, and so they lost in overtime to Kansas State, whatever. But man, Michigan, I feel like probably benefits from that. You can't tell me Michigan wouldn't prefer to play TCU than have to play Ohio State again this quickly. And maybe they'll just run them over again. Maybe they're just better, and that's possible. But it's not easy to beat a team twice, although Utah did it pretty convincingly against USC. I personally think they got the first 4 right. Even after that, Alabama should be 5. Tennessee 6 is a little bit debatable to me. I do think it's interesting. Penn State, I think, was 8, and they didn't play, and then they dropped down to 11 because Utah jumped over them by winning. Clemson jumped over them by winning. Kansas State jumped over them by winning, which is fine. They all won important big games, so it's fine. Penn State's in the Rose Bowl anyway. But I think they got the first 4 right. You know, really, Emory, it's the 4 teams that have – it's the 2 undefeated teams and the 2 one-loss teams. Everybody else after that has at least 2 losses.
Yeah, and the fact that USC lost to the same team twice eliminates them, you know. So, but for me, it's just like, I mean, if everybody wants to Ohio State in, just make Michigan Ohio State the first round game, because isn't Ohio State playing Georgia first?
Yeah.
So, do we really want a Michigan Ohio State? I mean, I guess TV wise, you want that game potentially to be a championship game for all the marbles. But you know, it's just I feel like, and I tweeted this out during the game. I'm like, man, I feel like Georgia against anybody should be a 10-point or at least double-digit favorite against the field. And Michigan, Ohio State, TCU. I just feel like this is Georgia's championship to win. I feel like there's not a lot of great storylines. Maybe the Harbaugh angle, but I feel like this is about to be chalk, in my opinion.
Georgia's very, very good. It feels really hard to go undefeated 2 years in a row all the way through. I mean, that would be.
We saw that.
What's that?
When the last time we saw that?
I don't know. It's historic, though.
Right?
Because even like the years where Alabama wins back to back, they always like lost 1 game during the regular season. Has Georgia even had a game that's been in single digits this year?
Missouri.
What?
The Missouri game. I think they beat Missouri like 34-29 or some crazy number like that. Yeah, that Missouri game was like, or 29-22. I'll tell you right now, it was a ridiculously close game out the blue in Missouri. I feel like it was as well.
Wow, that's nuts. I feel like if TCU beats Michigan, I think there's good storylines no matter what. If TCU beats Michigan, they're like the Cinderella, right?
Right.
TCU is kind of the Cinderella that like all the group of fives or everybody else can kind of root for. Like I'm rooting for TCU. I think that's amazing. I love the Max Duggan kid, like that game against K-State and him at the press conference crying. I love that. Like that gets me emotional because I love it that much. And I care about it that much that I love seeing other people that care about it that much. You know, it means that much because it freaking means that much. That's why. Because of the time invested into it. And so I would love if TCU beat Michigan. You know, if Georgia, all these storylines are great, right? Michigan gets the national championship game. That's cool. Michigan, Georgia rematch of last year in the playoff. Michigan, Ohio State would be like, oh, man, they're playing them again. That's wild. And then can you imagine, like, Michigan would immediately lose bragging rights for the last couple of years if Ohio State beat them for the national championship. It's like beating them the last couple of years would totally go out the window. Georgia going for history, because I can't remember the last time a team went, because they will be going 28-0, 12-0, plus SEC championship, plus national championship. Oh, no. Georgia lost last year.
They lost
in the
Bama.
SEC championship.
Right. They lost to Bama.
I'm an idiot. Georgia lost in the SEC championship to Alabama. All right, forget what I said. I'm a moron. But at any rate, Still, Georgia going for back-to-back, which is cool. So anyway, I think there's good storylines no matter what. I think they got it right. I don't have a big problem with the teams below them, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, we could gripe just to gripe. I don't really have a big one.
And it's fascinating because this weekend was the perfect case for playoff expansion. Like, this was perfect based off how games went. Like, wow, I wonder if USC could, get in as a 12 seed and make their way through with a healthy Williams. Man, Tulane looks really impressive. I wonder if they can perhaps be the Cinderella. How about Utah? They're starting to catch fire at the right time. And, so there's now we get to experience what every other level of college football has experienced, the playoffs, a true playoff system. Even though we'll complain about that once it gets here, we'll see 11 SEC teams in. They just play the best schedule. They'll find a way to get multiple SEC teams in. But I'm glad this weekend kind of made the case on why you need expanded playoffs. And I saw Georgia did beat Missouri 26-22. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about that. That's crazy. I didn't forget about Sling, Emory. Sling is the most valuable option when it comes to finding your favorite channels with the best deal for sports, news, entertainment, best live TV content, all in one place at the lowest price. Watch every touchdown live every Sunday afternoon with NFL Red Zone on Sling. For a limited time, you can get Sling Blue and add on Sports Extra with NFL Red Zone for half off your first month. So it's regular $46, now only $23. Think about that. You get the best deal on Red Zone for the rest of the season, so you catch all the touchdowns at the lowest price with Sling TV. Visit sling.com/DraftKings to sign up today. All right. Let's talk about the Heisman, Emory. Where do they announce that? Saturday night, right?
Yeah, it is tonight, this weekend.
It's always after the Army-Navy game because I'm always driving home and I listen to it. It's like an hour or 2 hours, and then they wait till the very end to announce it. What would be your ballot of top 3 or top however many you want to go?
I will listen. I'm a traditionalist, right? And we've been accustomed to seeing these things play out this way. It's usually, the team that has the usually number one team, the quarterback is there, or the star player from the team is there. I thought this would have been a perfect year for a defensive player like Will Anderson to win it. So I am gonna go number one, Stetson Bennett. I said that last year. He should at least got the invite, because he was he was a quarterback on the number one team going into playoffs or whatnot. Should have been there at least, get the free trip. This year, I think he should win the doggone thing with how well he's played and how he has been the productive piece on that offense. So I like Stetson Bennett, number one. And because I am, agent of chaos, I am going to throw in someone off the radar, someone that no one is talking about. How about we throw in one of the best playmakers in college football for the Heisman? How about we throw in Lindsey Scott Jr. from Incarnate Word, the quarterback? I'm pretty sure you've seen the viral touchdown clip. Stu has like 54 touchdown passes in the season. And they're in the playoffs. They won last week against Furman. I'm throwing him in there. He's not number 2, but he's going to be, he's going to be the Steve McNair of this class. He'll be my number 4. Number 2, I'm going to go with, someone that has also been outstanding. Every time we watch him play, we see him do great things. How about we throw in Blake Corum, at number 2? I still want to reward him for the year he's had. He was box office. He was great. Answered the call every time. He's number 2. And at number 3, I'll go with Max Duggan, especially coming off the performance that he did. I was just shocked that K-State couldn't figure out that he was running the football that whole drive, and the fact that he was gassed, they were gassed. Everyone on that field on that drive was gassed, that he still found enough to get into the end zone and lead his team. So I will go Bennett, Corum, Duggan, and the wild card, Lindsey Scott.
Interesting. Okay. No Caleb Williams.
If I didn't want to be chaotic, Caleb Williams would be 4.
Okay. So I think I'm going to go Caleb. It's supposed to be the most outstanding player in college football.
That's what it says on the trophy.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Caleb Williams, number 1. I thought he was the most outstanding player in college football this year that I saw. I thought he was just really, really good. Number 2, I'm going to go Stetson Bennett. I thought he was awesome. I don't know why. Stetson Bennett is the equivalent of like the late round pick or the undrafted free agent that doesn't make the Pro Bowl for 2 years after they should have made it because they entered the league as an undrafted guy. So they entered the league so low on the totem pole that they just don't get the love until it's way later than they should, right? Like the Kevin Byard or something,
Right.
Middle Tennessee State. Like you don't even know who they are till they've been awesome for 3 years. That's Stetson Bennett because he was a walk-on or whatever. He's just good. Like no more qualifiers, no more. Oh, he's pretty good for like a little white guy. No. He's
Right.
just good. He's just good. So he's number 2 for me. Number 3 is close between Max Duggan and Bryce Young. I know they lost a couple close games. That wasn't Bryce Young's fault. I mean, it's unbelievable how many games he made play after play after play when Alabama had to have it. He would win the Heisman this year if Nick Saban had his defense figure out what the heck they're doing. Alabama would be undefeated, and he would have won it again back to back if Nick Saban could get his defenses you-know-what together. Mm-hmm. And this was not your typical Alabama O-line. And he still ran around and made plays. So I'm going to go 1, Caleb Williams, 2, Stetson Bennett, 3, Bryce Young, 4, Max Duggan. Max Duggan's for the same logic and reasoning that you gave, Emory. So that was fun. I like that. I like kind of going through. Let me ask you this, Emory. Since this is the college draft podcast, talk to me about Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan as NFL players potentially.
All right, I'll start with Duggan first. And Duggan to me is a little bit too, I would say, up and down from a passing perspective. I tweeted this out during the game as well. I felt like in the third or fourth quarter, that his entire passing tree was either throwing for a pass interference or throwing an interception. Like it was no in between. It was like, hey, we're going for the extreme. We're driving the motorcycle out of the helicopter, right? So that's how he was throwing the football. The running is fine. You like the running, you like the toughness, all that good stuff. The passing was far too inconsistent. There were opportunities in the game where he was, they had guys open, put it out in front, put it out, lead the guy a little bit, have a little bit more anticipation. So I just feel like I would take Stetson Bennett before I would take Max Duggan from a pro prospect. Bennett is someone that plays the game like Doug Flutie, right? Where he plays scrappy, he plays with some confidence. He's not afraid of pressure. When he runs, he's running to score. He's not running to slide or not shocked that he's out there running. Oh my God, I'm taking off. Like Bennett can ball, but we know how the NFL is. We know the NFL will knock him for his height, for how he entered college football. The NFL will find a way to use every other negative against him. I mean, the last time we took a guy that started as a walk-on in a draft was Baker Mayfield. Look how that turned out. As if A plus B equals C in that situation, right? But Bennett can ball. And Bennett has shown you not only that he can ball, but he can lead from the front. And also he's big in big-time games. A lot of those throws against LSU this past weekend was fantastic. He was putting the ball where it needs to be. He has a stronger arm than people give him credit for. I think, but again, same. If you like Hendon Hooker, you like Stetson Bennett because you can't use the age thing because they're both 29 years old, 45 years old, whatever the case may be. They're both 25. But I think Bennett can be at least a solid, QB2 with QB1 upside. It could be Colt McCoy. which is fine. So I like Colt McCoy, always have. I think Colt McCoy's career would have been different had they not shattered his shoulder in that championship game against Bama. But I like McCoy and I like Bennett. I think Bennett, to me, has a better pro prospect than Max Duggan. I will say this last thing about the Heisman. Let's take out Lindsey Scott Jr., right? Let's put in another agent of chaos. If we talk about both outstanding, how about Harold Perkins? How about we put Harold Perkins at 4?
Yeah, that guy, it's a shame that he can't go to the NFL. I mean, it's rare. He's true freshman, right?
True freshman.
It's rare to see a true freshman be like, yeah, he could be like, he could play like next
LeVar
year.
Arrington was as a true freshman.
Who?
LeVar Arrington.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He could play. Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
He could play as a true freshman. Speaking of playing, Labatt Blue Light always plays. Always. There's no better way to watch your team on game day than with the pristine Canadian goodness of a cold Labatt Blue Light in your hand. Stock up, be the MVP of your tailgate. Share a Labatt on game day with your crew. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Emory, let's talk Army-Navy game. There's only one game this week at the FBS level. Now, there's some FCS playoff games, but at the FBS level, there's only one game. I think it's the greatest rivalry in sports. I'll be on the call for Westwood One with John Sadak. One of my favorite days of the year, every year. Army is laying a point. It's basically a pick 'em, right? The total keeps getting bet down at DraftKings Sportsbook, keeps getting bet down. It's 33 right now. In terms of pro prospects, it's probably the best one we've had in the Army-Navy game in a long time. I should point out that Navy actually has a pretty good player as well in John Marshall, their senior linebacker, the only unanimous all-conference first team American was John Marshall. Plays kind of an outside linebacker position. I think he's got a shot in the NFL. Special teams, they want linebackers that can cover. He's a little bit light, but they're going to look at him. He's got a good frame. They're going to look at him, Emory, and they're going to say, you know what? We can put a few more pounds. You know what he strikes me as? All these guys that are college safeties that they end up making linebackers. That's going to be John Marshall. He leads the conference with 9.5 sacks. He's good in coverage. This guy caught 2 touchdown passes from Caleb Williams in the DC championship senior year of high school to beat DeMatha. So he was a wide receiver in high school catching bombs from Caleb Williams, which is amazing. He's 6'2", 210. Emory, perfect. He'll be 6'2", he'll be 225, no problem. Be able to play on special teams, be able to play in space. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets drafted. But the real prospect in this game is Andre Carter, the defensive end from Army. He's listed at 6'7", 260. I think he's probably a little over 6'6", 250. 13 and a half or 15 and a half sacks last year. A lot of talk about him being a first-round player coming into this year, Emory. I don't really see that unless he goes down to the Senior Bowl and dominates. I think people want to see him be a little bit more physical at the point of attack. He moves very well. High school wide receiver, then tight end. Moves very well for his size. I'm talking cat-like quickness and change of direction. Serious length. Good with his hands. Has multiple moves. Got a good inside move. Good speed rush. My question for you, Emory, when you look at him, his upper body, it's not very physically impressive. He can easily put on 10, 15 pounds just in his upper body. He's not that physically strong. When you look at that, because I feel like some teams will look at that and that's a negative. And they'll be like, he's not strong enough, can't take him in the first round. Other teams will look at him and say, you know what? Look how good he's been. And he's not even strong. Like if we get him with us and he's not doing the military stuff and marching and getting up at 6 a.m. and he just drinks these smoothies and does this and do that, he could like be a legit monster. Because that's all the coaches Army will tell you. Like, wait till he gets to the NFL. Like he is going to be a monster. Which way do you look at that, Emory?
As you know me, Ross, as a guy that's positive by nature, I'm always looking at the upside. If he wasn't dominant and we're just talking about his frame, then I'd be on the other side, like, yeah, I'm kind of iffy on him because all we talk about is his height and his weight, but he doesn't play to his height and weight. We do that with receivers, but with this guy, we see the productivity, and you're like, all I gotta it's not even you gotta add, 40 pounds. It's not like he's 6'6.5", 220. He's already 250. You could add strength and muscle. That's easy. So I'm looking at, I got two words. I see, oh, that's two words right there, but I got two more words. OC Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka. These are the body types that you see. You can add strength. You can build the guy's weight up, smooth out the technique a little bit. You can't coach the skill that he has because that's natural. That's God given. So that is the least of my worries. Like, give me this guy before anybody else gets him. So because of that, I can see why, like, I would gamble in the first round because, okay, he has something that you can't coach. The ball get off, the technical skill, he plays with length, all the good things that you talked about. But the things that people are going to knock him for, man, that's an easy fix. Like, we can get him right quickly. So yeah, to your point, he goes out to the Senior Bowl, man. We talking about a guy that has a legit chance to go first round, or high second round. Either way, it's a win for him and a win for Army. That could be their best recruiting tool. I've always said this: they're a sleeping giant program, Army and Navy. If they just let guys go play pro ball, because that's an extension of your marketing department, in terms of getting guys to enlist and sign up. Like, imagine Army now on a recruiting trail with a first round NFL draft pick. Game over.
Yeah, it's funny because they have several guys in the NFL right now. Several. Right. Army has at least 4 I can think of off the top of my head. And it's a big selling point because they want to try to get the players that have aspirations to go to the NFL. Like, they want to get those guys. And what they tell them is, you got the world's best backup plan. You got this locked in, great education, 5-year job. And then after that, the job placement's amazing. Speaking of jobs, Emory, last thing I wanted to ask you about, we'll probably talk more about this next week. Next week, I want to dive into the bowls a little bit with you. We'll talk about where the FCS playoffs are, bowls we're most excited to see, evaluate the matchups in these bowls. But just your thoughts on Deion going to Colorado.
Personally, it sucks because you selfishly, I should say, I wanted to see him stick it out at Jackson State, and let's see Jackson State and other HBCUs move into the FBS. But professionally, I get it. I mean, when you look at what he's done, upgraded the practice facilities, upgraded the locker room, brought in all sorts of money via sponsors and deals to the program. Undefeated this year in conference play. He was undefeated last year in conference play, so he's won 2 SWAC championships and has a chance now to win a Black College National Championship if they win the Celebration Bowl with a perfect season. That hasn't happened since the late 90s, I believe, with Rich Kamegi out there. And Kamegi was the same guy, I think, that did it in the 80s too, or Roden did it in the 80s. But I do know it's been a while since Jackson State has been this football dominant. And so we saw James Houston on Thanksgiving make a play and get drafted, and he made plays for the Lions. So he not only produced NFL draft picks, was a big part in brokering the advent of the HBCU combine that now the Senior Bowl has attached to their event. He's got guys in the NFL. He's gotten guys drafted in the alternate leagues. He's won consistently at Jackson State. And before he left, in his press conference with the team, he's like, hey, I think y'all need to bring in T.C. Taylor, who's been a Jackson State lifer, one of the best football minds out there, who is already integrated with the program. So he's trying to leave it better than what he's done. And I just think that, why it sucks selfishly, it makes sense for him to go and now be a Power 5 guy. Yeah, he's going to take Shador. He's going to take Travis Hunter. That happens with any program. But, man, this dude did a lot in those 2.5 years at Jackson. I know people are upset right now, but just be glad it happened as opposed to wondering if it would have happened,
It's unbelievable how much more media attention the HBCUs have gotten over the last couple of years since he did that. Unbelievable. He has done so much for the HBCUs. It's exactly what you said. People should be happy he came, because now, people cover the HBCUs a lot more. And Eddie George took a job there, and who knows who else will take jobs there. So
Hugh Jackson at Grambling.
Yep. Hey, check him out at FBall Game Plan on Twitter. Love my guy Emory. Football Game Plan on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Right now, right when the show's over, go to footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide. Just buy it. Then you don't have to worry about it the next couple weeks or whatever. As soon as it's ready, you will get it. The keg is kicked. Go ahead, Emory.
Before we kick the keg and it's all tapped out, Jamel Jones, quarterback, Army.
Oh, yeah.
Got to give a shout out. His mom was my teacher in high school, Tanya Bartholomew Jones. Got to give her a shout out. I remember when she was pregnant with Jamel. I remember when he was a little toddler, and I look up and I see him scoring touchdowns for the Army Black Knights. Crazy how life comes full circle. Jamel Jones, one of the better players on that team. He does a great job whenever he gets in and plays a position.
That is so funny that you say that, because when I met with him a month or so ago, he mentioned that he grew up in New Orleans, because I was asking him about Texas. And he's like, actually, I grew up in New Orleans. We were asking about food, and he loves New Orleans food. And he is a great young man with an awesome personality. Honestly, one of my favorite things about doing the Army games is talking with these guys every Friday morning. They're just such impressive young men, and it makes you feel warm inside, about our country. It's why I love doing the Army-Navy game on Saturday. If you're driving around going holiday shopping or whatever, first of all, you shouldn't do that. You should just go to myfrontpagestory.com. Secondly, listen to your boy. It'll be on pretty much every radio station there is. Now the keg is kicked and we're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.